Hello, my beautiful juicy queens. I am here at Bayou City Hemp Company in Houston, Texas, and I'm about to tour their hemp manufacturing facility. I'm so excited. I'm gonna take y'all with me. Let's go. Bayou City Hemp Co. is a hemp manufacturing facility located in Houston, Texas. Evie's hometown, if you didn't know. They create high-quality hemp-derived CBD and THC products such as gummies, tinctures, and even THC-infused seltzers. Look, we got Meg, we got Beyonce, and we got Bayou City, baby. They even worked with Bun B to create a Delta-8 THC seltzer called Trillionaire. And that's an unprecedented level of iconicness, in my opinion. Bayou City Hemp's facility is GMP compliant, which is a system for ensuring that products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. GMP is common in pharmaceutical practices for consistency, cleanliness, and safety, which we love. They are also USDA and kosher certified, which is extremely hard to find in the hemp industry, especially in Texas. The hemp industry in Texas is quite literally the Wild West, so this is awesome. This is my king, Lucius, and he does extractions, and he showed me how these machines work, so let's take a look. These machines do CO2 supercritical extractions. Girl, I do not know what a supercritical extraction is. I'm not going to sit here and act like I did either, but Lucius had my back, so I'll explain. You get a supercritical fluid when you put a gas like CO2 under extreme pressure to where the gas becomes a liquid. Then it gets heated up to the point where it becomes a gas again. But it's like, wait, I can't become a gas because there's too much pressure, but I also can't become a liquid because it's too hot. So while the CO2 is having an identity crisis, and it's rapidly flexing between a gas and a liquid, this is the supercritical phase. The supercritical fluid then goes into the column, and it can pass through solid matter, even the cell walls of a plant, so it picks up all of your target compounds, which is CBD in this case. Your first step is taking some industrial grade hemp. This is just the dry herb from the flower of the hemp plant. So you'll take this dry herb, you'll put it into this column right here, which fits about 5,000 grams. Holy crap. And this first column is what picks up your target compounds. Then it goes through a series of collectors. And they use temperature and pressure controls to turn the supercritical liquid back into a gas. And when it turns back into a gas, it deposits all of the target compounds into these columns. And this big pump on the right is the recycler, so it makes sure nothing goes into the pump on the back end. This machine uses a closed loop system, which means the gas never leaves the system while it's running. It just goes through, gets collected, and then cycles back through. Each run takes about an hour, and for every 5,000 grams they put in, they get about 1,000 grams back, which is a pretty good yield. How did you start doing extracting?
Yeah, so about 8 years ago, I moved out to Denver, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
And I was working as a bud tender, which are the people who actually work at the dispensaries, right? And I realized after a while that I wanted to kind of learn about the process, how things are actually made for our industry. So I switched over to working into a factory where I was just weighing out concentrates and just kind of packaging and doing whatever they needed. And, you know, I worked hard and paid attention. And then one day, one of the lab guys was like, hey, I got an opening in the lab. Are you interested in being a scientist?
Hell
and
yeah.
I was like, yes, I am. Let's do it. So, yeah, I ended up doing that. And then I moved all around the country. I've lived in Oregon, California, and Las Vegas doing this.
Cool.
And
those are like the hot spots.
Yeah. And then I decided to come back home, and now I'm working for this fantastic company.
Yes.
Yeah, things are running really
well,
great.
It seems like you really love it. I'm glad they have you.
Well, they always say you don't work a day when you love what you do. Well, I haven't worked a day in about 8 years.
That's awesome. I love that. Now this is what the extract ends up looking like that comes from those big extraction machines. And I just call it the peanut butter because, well, it looks like peanut butter. Most of this is CBD. He said it was about 45 to 50% CBD. Now, in order to get the peanut butter stuff into a product, and this is not the stuff that goes in your tinctures, your drinks, all of that. They have to run it through a series of purification processes in order to get it ready to go into products. The first thing that happens to this peanut buttery stuff is it goes through a winterization process. Winterization is just where they remove the fats and lipids that were collected during the extraction process. Basically, they'll take the peanut butter stuff and put it in some ethanol, then they'll freeze it at about negative 80 degrees Celsius. The fats all crash to the bottom, and then it goes through a filtration step, which removes all the fats, and you have your crude.
Now, it works fantastically to extract terpenes. Terpenes are a lot of the lighter compounds that you would find within the hemp plant. And we found in the industry itself that they give therapeutic or uplifting effects.
Yes.
It's just like an essential oil.
Right,
An essential oil is a terpene.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sativa and indica are two terms we hear in the cannabis world a lot.
Yep.
So once we extract everything from this crude is no longer an indica or sativa, right?
Yep.
So the indica and sativa is more indicative of the specific combination of not only cannabinoids, but the terpene profile with that. So you get a very specific effect, blend, flavor. A lot of that is indicative of where they've grown over hundreds of years potentially. But also, you know, so terpenes are, cannabis is the only plant in the natural world that has all of these different essential oils under the same genus and the same plant. So it's a very unique plant.
Because other plants have terpenes, right?
Yes, like a lavender has linalool in it, for instance, and that's that wonderful scent. But yeah, that's what makes different strains of hemp smell different and give you different effects. Is because it's different. We used to call it the full spectrum or full profile of different terpenes within it. And so that's why one can smell completely different from the other. We had some cherry blossom hemp come through that smelled literally beautifully like cherries, and I think that's what they did a subcritical run on and got some of.
So you'll get an opportunity to smell some of the terpenes.
Ooh, yeah.
Did help with distillation. I'm good at that too.
Yeah, we'll do.
And before we go see the distillation room, let's go take a look at the gummy making room.
This is a room that we don't use as much anymore, but previously we used this for decarboxylation and grinding. In a couple of weeks, this will be entirely retrofit with our own gummy manufacturing line. So we're going to be pushing out about 15 to 20,000 gummies an hour.
Nice. What is the weirdest flavor you have ever heard of?
Someone
wanting.
Bacon.
Yeah.
But yeah. While there is also CBD in the plant, in order for it to be bioavailable, that the majority of it is CBDA until heat is introduced. So the best way to think about this, and CBD is a little bit different because it requires a little bit higher temperature for decarboxylation. When you think about smoking a joint, that's THCA. If you were to eat that, because of THCA, you're probably not going to feel anything but maybe get sick, right? THC, the actual delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, is a product of putting a lighter to the end of that joint and actually heating it up, creating a chemical reaction to change that into delta-9 THC. So that actual chemical reaction is what allows it to be bioavailable and pass through the CB1 and CB2 receptors in your endocannabinoid system. One of the ones that we've been talking about recently that's been all the rave is 11-hydroxy tetrahydrocannabinol. 11-hydroxy tetrahydrocannabinol is actually one of the two metabolites in your body once you consume delta-9 THC. So it's actually what's produced by your liver once you smoke, which because it's already metabolized by your body, they found that it's anywhere between 10 and 15 times as potent as delta-9 THC.
And this is where the magic happens. LOL, JK. Anyway, After winterization, the peanut buttery stuff goes into these distillation machines for purification. The goal of purification is just to get rid of all the junk that's still in there from the extraction process. The first step is kind of like a reverse butter churn, so it takes all the fats and lipids and leaves them at the top, which then gets scraped out. Then it goes into something called a rotovap, which is used to evaporate the ethanol that they used in the winterization process. So you'll put your substance in that little ball thing and it rotates in warm water, evaporating the ethanol into that column. And if you're super obsessed with distillation, don't you worry, because we got another one for you. This machine uses wiped film distillation. The first run is for degassing and pulling solvent out. Again, like ethanol. A thin film of liquid is created on the inner surface using a wiper system, and while the wiper rotates, the liquid flowing down gets equally distributed into a column. Since the solution is so thin, it makes it really easy to pull the solvents out with a vacuum. The solvents are pulled into a super cold environment at about 40 degrees Celsius, and it gets distilled off. Bye! It's gone. Then they'll run it through a second time, which pulls the rest of the residuals out, like terpenes, chlorophyll from the plant, waste, all kinds of stuff. Here you're just refining the oil to make it pretty for products.
From the point that we went through winterization to the rotovap to distillation, you're removing all of these other adulterants, chlorophyll, plant material, so you're condensing this cannabinoid profile. So what was 0.3% THC now could be anywhere between 8, 9, 10% THC. So the way that we are able to mitigate that is using a machine called chromatography.
Here in Texas, the legal limit of THC in a product is 0.3% THC by weight. After that crude product, aka the peanut butter, is distilled and all the impurities and solids are removed, the concentration of the cannabinoids is much higher. So at this point, you can be left with a higher than desired concentration of THC, such as 8 or 9%, which is not legal. Jail! So in order to get down to the concentration of 0.3% THC, the distilled product goes through what is called chromatography. Chromatography is just a process that separates the components of a mixture. This is how you can get pure CBD by removing all traces of THC or isolate a particular cannabinoid such as delta-9 THC. When the molecules are separated, like THC and CBD, they'll stick to the column where this machine will shoot UV light through the sample. This creates a graph on the computer screen that shows you how much light is being absorbed by each molecule, where the different peaks represent the period of time that the light is absorbed by each molecule. So one peak will represent THC, while the other peak will represent CBD or whatever other cannabinoid you have. And this is how you can tell how much THC or CBD that you have in your sample.
From CBD to delta-9, it's a pretty different molecule. Yeah. But then from delta-9 to delta-8 to delta-10 is only the difference between the positioning of one hydrocarbon.
Yes.
So yeah, it's once you get to that point, I mean, you're in very, very, very specific increments, and it requires some pretty substantial technology to differentiate those.
A lot of people have no idea why you're allowed to have any type of THC in products and have it be legal. So how are you still able to get high from products that have below 0.3% THC?
The way that we're able to make drinks and successfully, make gummies and different edible products is that 0.3% delta-9 THC is by dry weight basis. So while I would absolutely discourage it because it's an irresponsible dose, by law, if you take a 355 milliliter can, 12-ounce can, you can put over 1 gram of nanotized delta-9 THC in. That's probably enough to knock out a horse.
Right.
Okay. So we're able to do what we do because of the way the federal farm bill has been written.
Okay.
So right now, the maximum potency we put in any of our drinks is 5 milligrams. We want everybody to be able to enjoy it in a safe manner. We don't want anybody soaring over the moon. We don't want anyone to put themselves in a situation that's potentially dangerous.
Right.
And for those like Cameron and myself that can probably drink a couple of them, we want to be able to allow people to sit down and enjoy 6 of them.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Our partner is Eighth Wonder Brewery. So, you know, we do all of our canning through there. They were the first proprietors of a Delta drink in Texas. So they have their Wonder Water. They have a CBD Wonder Water and a Delta 8 Wonder Water you can buy in their tap room, you know, right next to their beer. So we've had some pretty intimate conversations with TABC, you know, the regulatory board for alcohol in Texas. And one of the things we found is they're pretty all about it. And the way I see it is, especially for an institution that has to send warm bodies out to ensure that everybody is in regulation, nobody's over serving or serving people under the age of 21. If you serve something like THC or CBD to somebody who, you know, the worst effect you're going to find is they have to go to the refrigerator and they get hungry and they go to sleep, versus get behind the wheel of their car and then something worse. You know, it's mitigating a lot of the problems that they encounter. So, you know, they're saving time and money and people, man hours, by incorporating something that is essentially safer for the general public and can be enjoyed in a similar fashion.
I've heard something about THCV and it being a little bit like Adderall, like a little kind of upper-y.
THCV is pretty natural. So one, it acts a little bit more like a stimulant. They've actually done studies for it mitigating the use of insulin for people that have type 2 diabetes. It moderates your glucose in your blood.
Oh, okay.
And they also did a study that I was reading about that they took a group of people, and I think they gave them 3 different substances. They gave them a certain dosage of THC, a placebo, or THCV, placebo, and vitamin C. And all of these people were not type 2 diabetic, but were at risk for diabetes. Out of the 90-day study, they found that the people who didn't change their lifestyle or eating habits at all had an average weight loss of between 10 and 12 pounds only consuming THC.
Really?
Right. So there's, you know, the studies that they're doing are very base level. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but there's some real magic behind that stuff.
Yeah.
Strawberry flavored Delta 9 lubricant. So it's edible, but that's been very popular among like the LGBTQ community. Yeah. Because it represents a real lifestyle product that isn't just going to a smoke shop and picking up a joint. Right. You know, it's a segue into this industry and a platform that you know, it's easy to use.
And you get that
sex and cannabis. I mean, these are 2 industries that kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
So products like that, I mean, we have a company out of Houston here that's Only Dank.
I've seen that.
So it's like the OnlyFans.
Right.
The Only Dank,
Which, so those guys at Only Dank are doing, the way they've created a blend between OnlyFans and like the sex aspect of things and cannabis and hemp is awesome. And it's attracting people from everywhere.
And last but not least, the chemical reactors. A reactor is just a big vessel where a chemical reaction takes place. And these are used to make sure their isolates are as pure as possible. He was explaining to me that the Delta 9 reactions are pretty hard to scale, so they just do them in these little ones right now. You can get real big with them. And here we were just chatting about how Steven has been with Bayou City since the very beginning, about 3 years ago. Then I was like, does anyone know where I can get a sample of this Delta 9 lube? I'm just saying, asking for a friend. Come on. Okay, I'm not going to act like that was not the most invigorating experience of my life. It was absolutely phenomenal, so much fun. Everybody that worked there, so knowledgeable. I feel like I learned more in that hour about cannabis than I've learned in my entire 25 years of life. So now we're gonna go to Eighth Wonder Brewery in Houston downtown Houston, and check it out. They have some super cool THC drinks, and I'm gonna try them out, so we'll see.